Hey guys, wanted to show you guys something cool, sort of where technology is heading for the Greater Vancouver area and British Columbia and Canada in general. As of recently, I basically have the fastest internet in my city. Yes, no one has an internet connection as fast as mine in my city. There and also a lot of the surrounding cities, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, Surrey, Langley, maybe even Burnaby. I know that there's a couple people in Vancouver that have the residential service. I think a person in Mission, just a handful. As Telus is releasing this new PureFiber X running at 2.5 gigabits, where upload and download, where you actually get 2.6 gigabits, 2600 megabits. I'm the first customer in British Columbia to actually have the business grade internet. So this business grade is not even advertised anywhere. Even the residential isn't really advertised. They're not advertising it to people yet, but there are a few people that found out about it and had it installed. But when it came to the business internet, I tried to set it up and they came out thinking I had residential, and they said, oh, we don't even have modems on the business side yet. We haven't even seen one. So I talked to them and I said, hey, if there is a test pilot, if you're going to start testing it on business, I'd like to be the first one. I can give you guys some feedback. And I'd like to be the first to adopt this technology. So yeah, the nice tech eventually called me back, said, hey, we're going to set it up for you on business. We're getting some modems. And I was kind of doubtful because with Telus, sometimes they try things, it doesn't work out. But in this case here, they did come by one time, they couldn't do it, and then came back again, and we did figure it out, and it was all set up. I did have a hard time getting the 1 gigabit installed before that, which took some time, but upgrading to the 2.5 gigabits wasn't overly difficult. So yeah, I'm the first customer in BC to be on a business plan where I can buy static IP addresses to have the 2.5 gigabit service, which runs slightly off a different network than the residential. That's why it's a little bit faster than residential. Now, at least that's what I've been told by a Telus Tech. So I'll show you guys a test. Now, interesting thing you're going to see here, we're going to do a test, and we're going to get 2.6 gigabits download, but we're only going to get a gigabit upload, and I'll explain why. I have not purchased 10 gigabit equipment yet. You'll notice here there's three 1 gigabit network cards that we were downloading at. Right now we're uploading with this network card, because when you're uploading, you can't aggregate the bandwidth this way. I've tried it when you do NIC teaming, then you can get the upload, but you'll only get a gigabit on the download. So I've been trying to test this theory before I go out and buy all this like 10 gigabit network cards and fiber cables and all that for all my servers. There's plenty of videos out online to show what's called SMB multi-channel. So SMB multi-channel is when you take multiple network cards, 1 gigabit network cards, and you aggregate the bandwidth. So here's an example of a torrent I was downloading. And we'll take a look here. It's downloading at about 270 megabytes per second. This is not megabits, megabytes. And it's using 4 different network cards here. And we're going to surpass at one point. See right here, I'm going to pause it. We're basically at 298. On the bottom at one point, I saw it go over 340 megabytes per second, which is pretty incredible to be able to download at 300 megabytes. Once the remember, there's 8 megabits in each megabyte. Therefore, it's 8 times faster. So yeah, and you can see that basically, so when it comes to downloading, it's fine, and that was the theory I wanted to test before I go out and buy any 10 gigabit equipment. Can I actually use it this way, or do I have to get 10 gigabit equipment? Can I actually aggregate the bandwidth? And the answer is yes and no. On multiple connections, yes, you can aggregate. It's very finicky. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It takes a lot of figuring out. But for upload, it's more difficult because it has to send through one network adapter through one IP. And also it takes more CPU. You'll notice here when I'm downloading, it's actually taking quite a bit of CPU because it's reassembling the packets. So I am ordering some 10 gigabit equipment and 10 gigabit switches, which are still fairly pricey. but it'll allow me to kind of do it slowly. And some of the servers are just going to be a gigabit. Some of them will be, 2 gigabits, even aggregated, or 3. And I'll have a couple servers that are 10 gigabit in a switch. So the modem that they gave me is basically like a NAT router, which the fiber goes into the back, and in the front I have 5 ports, basically 4 1 gigabit Ethernet ports and 1 10 gigabit Ethernet, which you can put into bridge mode. You can actually put all the ports into bridge mode, or even just one of the ports, or even the 10 gigabit port, and run it to another switch and run it this way. So, what's kind of cool about this is that Google Fiber, which came out, which was really cool. I was waiting for Google Fiber to ever reach Vancouver and thought it would take many years. So Google Fiber has a plan that they're rolling out. They're just rolling out a 2 gigabit plan, and it's only available in a couple cities in the States. But the thing is, they only have 1 gigabit upload per second, and of course only the 2 gigabits per second download. So here we're getting 2.6 up and down with Telus in Vancouver, which is incredible. We basically surpassed Google Fiber quite a bit, and found out as well that Telus is actually testing a 5 gigabit connection, which probably will give about 5,200 megabits. Someone on DSL Reports mentioned that they were trying to fix the speed. There were some issues with his bandwidth, and they temporarily put him on a 5 gigabit plan that they're testing, and he got to see how that would work, which is really neat, where this is going. So at my house, the way everything is set up right now, I actually have fiber going to the house and a 10 gigabit GPON going into the back of the modem. I think it's called something different than a GPON. There's an extra letter there. The 1 gigs are called GPONs. And so I already have basically a 10 gigabit connection coming to my house. Telus is actually throttling me down to 2.5 gigabits, but everything in place, the router or the ONT is 10 gigabit, the GPON is 10 gigabit, and the cabling is 10 gigabit. So when Telus is ready to offer, and they have the provisioning for 5 gigabit, they won't even have to come down. We'll just, do it from their end, and it'll upgrade me to 5 point something gigabits, and hopefully eventually 10 gigabit. It's coming, maybe a year, maybe more. I can imagine 5 gigabit probably this year would eventually come out. But it's hard to say. There's really no time frame. They're not mentioning anything. It could be a lot longer than that. Now, to keep in mind, for those who may be interested in this, they find it pretty cool. Even 1 gigabit speed from fiber is decent, very decent. I know a lot of people are getting a lot less for much more, and I'm sure we'll see it in the comments. But 2.5 gigabits for the average person is unusable. So a lot of the question people will ask is like, what would you use this internet connection for? So downloading torrents is one. You could use it for that. You could use it for using Usenet, of course, for legal torrents. For me, I run a whole bunch of business services, also a lot of voice services, so I need very low latency. And I've actually noticed even better latency on the 2.5 gigabit than I did on the 1 gigabit, mainly because when you're downloading at like 600 or 700 megabits, you start getting some latency as the packets, sometimes queue a little bit. As we're on 2.5 gigabit, you don't get that kind of latency, so it doesn't affect voice data as much. I sell some software in that as well, so there's large 7 or 8 or 10 gig software packages people download, so it's nice to have that. One amazing thing I found as well is that when I was on the residential side, and again, I don't know if it's due to business or if it's the fact that I went from 1 gigabit to 2.5 gigabit, they might be on a different network, but I was having a very fast 1 gigabit speeds when it came to local connections, like if I was doing a speed test from Seattle or even Calgary. But if I went past to like Ontario, Vegas, or anything past that point, my download was okay, 700-800 megabits, but my upload was like between 50 to about 150 megabits. And oftentimes it would slow down below 100. So I couldn't really push more than 100 megabits of data anywhere outside of like a 4-hour drive from here, like a 6-hour drive from here, or maybe 8 to 10 hour drive from here. But when I upgraded to the others, like to the 2.5 gigabit, like let's check out something from, it's not going to get the whole 2.5 gigabits because of the SMB multi-channel. So I'll do some more tests later to show once I have the 10 gigabit equipment. So let's take a look at Ontario. Okay. No, let's type in. If we type in Toronto and say we'd even do Telus mobility, like on this, I would get about 100 something for megabits for pushing up there. But with this 2.5 gig service, like my upload significantly increased. Like I was getting less upload for further locations and more download, but now I'm getting like a gigabit at least. And I can't even test it fully because I can't do multiple network cards for outgoing, but in most cases it does the full gigabit even all the way to Toronto. So even if we go to like, let's take a look here. Even let's go to like, let's take a look on the maps. Okay. Let's go to like Miami. What would be like a fast server? Let's try AT&T. So that's pretty much almost as far as it gets in North America. Okay, that's not going to be that great. But watch, I'll believe my upload speed is going to be greater. I do get some servers out there, I do get a full gigabit, but I'll likely get more upload than download. So on a server that would only give me, 400 megabits download, it would only give me like 80 or 90. See, look at this, and it's pushing the bandwidth very well. Even though it is using only one network card. So I'm basically, see, 980, 990. So I'm maxing out at least the Ethernet adapter to push data all the way to Miami. And upload is actually much more important for me than download. So I'm very happy with this change. On the 1 gigabit service, for some reason, I would have got like about 100 some megabits to this server. Anyways, guys, so the other thing too I want to mention, 2600 megabits is roughly about 500, a little over 500 real-time YouTube streams, like 1080p streams, like 30 frames per second, about 5 megabits per second. So like if you're streaming information in your house, I don't think you're even going to notice anything above 150 megabits, even when you're downloading stuff, even less than that. But yeah, you could do 500 streams, like 2.6 gigabits is enough for, if it comes to regular browsing using voice over IP and even some YouTube. That's enough to power an entire office building and have plenty of bandwidth for everybody. I did a test before where I limited my internet connection down to 3 megabits and I did some regular browsing, even watching YouTube, and it was fine. It was a little slower, you can notice it, but when it comes to browsing, doing Facebook, 3 megabits was almost not noticeable. I was able to watch YouTube, I believe 1080p, but not 60 frames per second. Once I put in 60 frames, it was buffering. So some lower quality like YouTube videos, 1080p YouTube videos played. But if you have like 5 megabits, 6 megabits per person for regular browsing, it's more than enough. So 2600 megabits, unless you're doing some business applications, for the average user, unfortunately, there's just really no benefit. Yeah, so, and the way Telus prices it, of course, is the same way. If you look at 300, well, actually it's cheaper when you sign a contract here. It cost me $30 more, about $150 with taxes and static IP on the business plan per month. So it cost me about $30 more than the gigabit plan. So it was worth it for me, but for the average person to pay $30 if you already have a gigabit, again, as long as you understand the application and the use, how you're going to use this connection, because you might likely never touch anything above a gigabit. Only way you can do that is with multiple downloads. Either a lot of people downloading large files at the same time, or if you're doing some major backups and things like that, or hosting some services. Anyways, so it's kind of cool what's happening. Telus is surpassing Google Fiber even in the speeds. Telus is such a gigantic company. They spent, I believe, $54 billion just in Calgary, expanding their Telus network, their fiber network. They're just so much larger than Shaw, the other competitor here, that Shaw can't can't build out a fiber network, fiber to the house. And that's another thing too. A lot of people are actually confused. They think that Shaw is actually fiber, and there's been a lawsuit actually where Telus sued Shaw for trying to use fiber plus. Network plus suggests that it's better, right? It's fiber and better, but really it's just marketing. Shaw is basically, their back end is fiber, just like it always has been for many years, but there's still cable, and cable is technology used to basically run TV, right? It's analog technology. That's why you have a modem. A modem is modulate and demodulate. So it takes a signal that's digital, right, down further on the poles. It converts it into an analog signal to get it through the cables that were built for TV, basically antenna, and then your modem rebuilds those packets, converts them, modulates them into digital information. So you do get some extra latency by having the modulation and demodulation, as well with fiber you don't. So there's just more latency. And I know Shaw is trying to say that they're fiber, but it's funny to watch when they say that, because it's not. It's literally the same old analog Shaw cable internet that's been around for many, many years. They try to pass it off as being fiber because they say 99% of our network or whatever is fiber. Well, what's the difference when all of a sudden towards the end you have to go on analog? And they've made improvements. There's a new DOCSIS 3 over the years that was been designed, which allow them to go, I can't remember how many gigabits per second, but they'll be able to go into multiple gigabits. But it's going to be very difficult for Shaw to compete. Very difficult. Telus is just killing it. Anyways, I'm going to make some more videos in the future about this. If you already have fiber, you can call them. They can probably upgrade you to this other plan if you like. You can negotiate with them. I negotiated with them because I said, I don't know for sure if I'm going to want to keep this, and I didn't want to re-sign a contract and extend my contract. So they gave me a chance. They said, okay, for 90 days, if you change your mind and go back, then you'll go back to your original contract. So you may be able to try it and then go back, even if you have to sign a contract, if you're already on a contract. Anyways, I thought that was pretty cool. I will make some more videos downloading individual files and uploading things to servers. Eventually, I'll make another video once I get my 10 gigabit equipment configured. If I showed you now, it would basically mostly upload at 1 gigabit, which is still somewhat impressive, but not that impressive. Anyway, so yeah, this is my little video of showing the fastest internet in my city. This is Port Coquitlam, between Coquitlam and a lot of the surrounding cities. No one actually has the residential or the business yet in those cities, and no one in BC, as of the installation, had a business plan at 2.5 gigabits. I'm the first customer, which is kind of cool to be able to test drive this equipment, and everything's working fine. So anyways, guys, thank you and happy surfing.